when young scribe Neferu uncovers the fabled Book of the Dead in Alexandria's great library, he's unwittingly hurled into the treacherous realm of the Duat. Armed only with his wits and ancient knowledge, he must overcome the underworld's deadly trials, outsmarting mythical beasts, deciphering cryptic riddles, and navigating seas of flame. But as Neferu delves deeper into the Duat's mysteries, he realizes the greatest challenge may not be the god's tests, but confronting the truth within his own heart. In a world where knowledge is power and death is just the beginning, can Neferu find his way back to the land of the living? The golden sun of Alexandria cast long shadows across the bustling agora as Neferu weaved through the crowded marketplace. The air shimmered with heat, thick with the pungent aroma of spices and the cacophony of a dozen languages. Merchants' cries mingled with the bleating of goats and the distant crash of Mediterranean waves. But Neferu, usually fascinated by the vibrant tapestry of life around him, barely noticed the colorful scene. His mind raced with anticipation, his heart pounding a rhythm of excitement and trepidation. For today was no ordinary day. It was the day he, the youngest scribe in a generation, would finally breach the innermost sanctum of the great library of Alexandria and uncover secrets hidden for millennia. At 22 years old, Neferu was the youngest scribe ever to be granted this honor. He had spent years studying, proving himself to the elder scholars, and now his dedication was about to pay off. As he approached the towering marble facade of the library, Neferu's heart raced with anticipation. The young scribe paused at the entrance, taking a moment to run his hand over the inscriptions carved into the stone. "The place of the cure of the soul," he murmured, tracing the ancient Greek letters. With a deep breath to steady his nerves, Neferu stepped inside. Cool air washed over him as he entered the vast main hall. Scrolls and codices lined the walls, stretching as far as the eye could see. Scholars from every corner of the known world moved quietly among the stacks, their whispered conversations a soft backdrop to the rustle of papyrus. Neferu made his way through the familiar halls, nodding respectfully to the older scribes and scholars he passed. Many smiled at him, pride in their eyes for this promising young pupil, but others watched him with a hint of suspicion or jealousy. Neferu was acutely aware of the mixed feelings his rapid rise had stirred among some of his colleagues. As he approached the restricted section, an old librarian with a long white beard and eyes clouded by cataracts raised a gnarled hand to stop him. "Ah, young Neferu," the old man said, his voice crackling like dry papyrus. "Today's the day, is it not?" "Yes, Master Amenhotep," Neferu replied, bowing his head in respect. The old librarian's cloudy eyes seemed to peer right through Neferu. "Be careful, my boy," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "Knowledge is power, but some secrets are best left undiscovered. The texts you seek, they have a way of changing those who read them." Neferu felt goosebumps, but he pushed the feeling aside. "I understand, Master," he said, though in truth he didn't fully grasp the warning. "I'll be cautious." Amenhotep nodded slowly, then stepped aside. "May the wisdom of Thoth guide you," he murmured as Neferu passed. With trembling hands, Neferu pushed aside a heavy curtain embroidered with protective hieroglyphs and entered a small, dimly lit room. The air was thick with the scent of aged papyrus and sacred incense. Flickering oil lamps cast dancing shadows on the walls, making the painted figures seem to move. His eyes scanned the shelves until they fell upon a scroll case unlike any other. It was made of pure gold, adorned with intricate hieroglyphs that seemed to shimmer and shift in the flickering lamplight. Neferu's breath caught in his throat as he realized what he was looking at, the legendary Book of the Dead. For a moment, he hesitated, Master Amenhotep's warning echoing in his mind. But curiosity and ambition quickly overcame his caution. With utmost care, he removed the scroll from its case and unrolled it on a nearby table. The papyrus crackled softly under his touch, as if awakening from a long slumber. Neferu's eyes widened as he began to read the ancient text, his lips moving silently as he translated the hieroglyphs. "O reader," the book began, "within these pages lie the secrets of life and death, of the mortal world and the realm beyond. Speak these words with caution, for they hold the power to bridge the gap between the living and the dead." Excitement coursed through Neferu's veins as he delved deeper into the text. The book contained spells and incantations, maps of the underworld, and instructions for navigating the perilous journey to the afterlife. It was more than he had ever dreamed of discovering. As the young scribe lost himself in the ancient words, he failed to notice the strange mist that had begun to seep into the room. It coiled around his feet and climbed up his body like ghostly tendrils. Only when the world around him began to fade did Neferu realize something was terribly wrong. He tried to call out, but his voice was swallowed by the thickening fog. The library disappeared, replaced by swirling darkness. Neferu felt himself falling, tumbling through an endless void. Just as panic threatened to overwhelm him, he landed with a thud on solid ground. Groaning, Neferu pushed himself to his feet and looked around. Gone was the familiar world of Alexandria. In its place was a vast, otherworldly landscape bathed in an eerie, greenish light. The sky above was a starless expanse of inky blackness, and the air was heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms and myrrh. With a jolt of realization, Neferu understood where he was. This was the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Somehow, reading from the Book of the Dead had transported him to the realm of the afterlife. Fear gripped his heart, but Neferu forced himself to remain calm. He was a scribe, trained in the ancient texts. If anyone could find a way back to the world of the living, it was him. But first, he would have to navigate the dangers of the Duat and face the judgment of Osiris himself. As if summoned by his thoughts, a shadowy figure appeared before him. It was a jackal-headed man, Anubis, the god of mummification and guide to the underworld. "Welcome, Neferu," Anubis spoke, his voice a low growl that sent shivers down the scribe's spine. "You have entered the realm of the dead before your time. To return to the world of the living, you must pass the trials of the Duat and prove yourself worthy before Osiris." Neferu swallowed hard but nodded. "I am ready," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Anubis gestured to a path that stretched out before them, winding its way through a landscape of twisted trees and glowing pools. "Follow this road," the god instructed. "It will lead you to the Hall of Two Truths, where your heart will be weighed against the feather of Maat. But be warned, many dangers lurk in the shadows of the Duat. Use your knowledge wisely, young scribe." With that, Anubis vanished, leaving Neferu alone at the start of his journey. Taking a deep breath, the young man set off down the path, his mind racing as he tried to recall everything he had ever learned about the afterlife. The first challenge came sooner than he expected. As Neferu rounded a bend in the path, he found himself face to face with a monstrous creature, half lion, half hippopotamus, with the head of a crocodile. It was Ammit, the devourer of souls. Ammit's eyes glowed with hunger as she regarded Neferu. "Tasty morsel," she growled, licking her chops. "Your soul will make a fine meal." Neferu's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stand his ground. He remembered a spell from the Book of the Dead and began to recite it, his voice growing stronger with each word. "O Ammit, devourer of souls, I am protected by the might of Ra. My heart is pure, my intentions true. Let me pass, for I am one with Osiris, reborn and eternal." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to Neferu's amazement and relief, Ammit growled in frustration and stepped aside. "Pass, mortal," she snarled. "But know that if you fail the weighing of the heart, your soul will be mine." Breathing a sigh of relief, Neferu continued on his way. But as he journeyed deeper into the Duat, The challenges grew more complex and dangerous. He came to a vast lake of fire, its surface churning with flames. On the far shore, he could see the path continuing, but how to cross? Neferu racked his brain, trying to remember what he had read about this obstacle. Then it came to him, the names. He had to name each of the lake's guardians. Taking a deep breath, Neferu began to recite, "Hail to thee, I know your names. You are he who is in the house of azure flame, hippopotamus-faced, raging of power, eater of millions, dweller in Heliopolis." As he spoke each name, a stepping stone rose from the fiery lake. With careful steps, Neferu made his way across, the heat searing his skin, but unable to harm him as long as he remembered the sacred names. No sooner had he reached the other side than he found himself facing a new challenge. A great sphinx, its human face impassive as it regarded him with ancient eyes. "Answer my riddle, mortal," the sphinx intoned, "or be cast into the abyss." Neferu nodded, steeling himself. The sphinx spoke, "I have cities but no houses. I have mountains but no trees. I have water but no fish. What am I?" Neferu's mind raced. He had heard many riddles in his studies, but this one was new. He closed his eyes, visualizing the clues. Cities without houses, mountains without trees, water without fish. His eyes snapped open. "A map," he declared. The sphinx's lips curved into a slight smile. "You are correct, young scribe. You may pass." As Neferu continued his journey, he faced more trials. He navigated a maze of illusions by trusting in his knowledge of sacred geometry, outsmarted a group of demon tricksters with clever wordplay, and crossed a chasm on a bridge made of his own memories and regrets. With each trial, Neferu grew more confident, but also more troubled. The ease with which he was overcoming these obstacles made him wonder. Was he truly as virtuous as he believed, or was his success due to his knowledge of the sacred texts? And if it was the latter, was that enough to prove his worthiness? These thoughts weighed heavily on him as he finally arrived at the Hall of Two Truths. It was a vast chamber, its walls covered in vivid paintings depicting the judgment of the dead. At the far end sat Osiris on his throne, flanked by Isis and Nephthys. Before them stood a great scale, and beside it waited Anubis and Thoth, the god of wisdom. As Neferu approached, Anubis spoke, "It is time for your heart to be weighed against the feather of Maat, the embodiment of truth and justice. If your heart is lighter than the feather, you may return to the world of the living. If not, Ammit will devour your soul." Neferu nodded, trying to quell the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. He watched as Anubis placed a feather on one side of the scale and his heart, which had mysteriously appeared in the god's hand, on the other. Time seemed to stand still as the scale wavered, tipping first one way, then the other. Neferu held his breath, acutely aware of Ammit lurking in the shadows, waiting for the chance to pounce. Finally, the scale settled, perfectly balanced. Neferu's heart was exactly as heavy as the feather of Maat. A murmur of surprise ran through the assembled gods. Osiris leaned forward on his throne, his eyes fixed on Neferu. "This is unusual," the god of the dead said. "Your heart is neither lighter nor heavier than the feather. You have led a life balanced between virtue and vice, young scribe." Neferu bowed his head, shame washing over him. "Great Osiris," he said, his voice trembling, "I have always strived to live a good life, to honor the gods and help my fellow man. But I see now that I have also been prideful, believing my knowledge made me better than others. I used my skills to gain access to forbidden texts, driven by curiosity and ambition rather than wisdom." He looked up, meeting Osiris's gaze. "I understand now that true worthiness comes not just from knowledge, but from how we use it. I am ready to accept whatever judgment you deem fit." For a long moment, silence reigned in the Hall of Two Truths. Then, to Neferu's surprise, Osiris smiled. "You speak with honesty and show true understanding, young one. This self-awareness and willingness to learn is as valuable as any virtue." The god of the dead raised his crook and flail. "I judge you worthy, Neferu. You may return to the world of the living. But remember the lessons you have learned here. Use your knowledge not for personal gain, but to help others navigate the complexities of life and prepare for what lies beyond. Relief and gratitude flooded through Neferu. He bowed deeply, thanking Osiris and the other gods. As he straightened, the world around him began to fade, much as it had when he first entered the Duat. When the swirling mists cleared, Neferu found himself back in the secret room of the Library of Alexandria. The Book of the Dead lay open before him, its hieroglyphs now seeming to pulse with hidden meaning. For a moment, Neferu was tempted to continue reading, to unlock more of the book's secrets. But then he remembered his experience in the Duat and Osiris's words. With a small smile, he carefully rolled up the papyrus and returned it to its golden case. As he left the restricted section, Neferu nodded to Master Amenhotep. "You were right," he said. "Some secrets are best left undiscovered, or at least approached with great wisdom and caution." The old librarian's cloudy eyes twinkled knowingly, and Neferu wondered if perhaps he wasn't the first to have had such an adventure. In the days and years that followed, Neferu dedicated himself to using his knowledge to help others. He taught students not just the mechanics of writing and history, but also the importance of wisdom, empathy, and moral living. He became known not just for his vast knowledge, but for his compassion and insight. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Neferu would dream of the Duat. He would see again the fiery lake, the riddling sphinx, and the great scale of Myat. But instead of fear, these dreams now filled him with a sense of purpose and a renewed appreciation for the precious gift of life. As for the Book of the Dead, it remained in the library, waiting for the next seeker of knowledge to discover its secrets, and perhaps to learn the same valuable lesson that Neferu had. For in the end, it is not the knowledge we possess that defines us, but how we choose to use it.